نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us plenty of lessons, advices and warnings in Surah Yunus, and sometimes the advices of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are given through stories and lessons derived from stories. In the story of Musa alayhi salam, after much persecution and pain at the hands of Fir'aun, Musa alayhi salam worked on his people, and his primary effort was on his own people. He went and invited Fir'aun in his court, but he did not spend time working on Fir'aun. He went, invited him, and came back and spent his time on Bani Israel. اجعلوا بيوتكم قبلة وأقيموا الصلاة. Establishing salat in every home. People questioned his purpose or his usefulness. أُذِينَا مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن تَأْتِيَنَا. We were suffering before you came. We were being persecuted and tortured. And even after you came. وَمِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جِئْتَنَا. You have come as the prophet. Fir'aun is still persecuting us and killing us. So what good did you bring us? He said that don't worry. The matter of your enemy is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's responsibility to defeat him, to destroy him, not mine. Allah has not given me this responsibility, or any of us. That is his matter with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he told them that learn to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Increase your iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In kuntum amantum billahi فَعَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنْتُم مُسْلِمِينَ. If you have really believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you must learn to trust Allah. So one is to declare one's belief in Allah from the aspect of creed, that this is my aqeedah, that Allah is my Rabb, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is my Nabi, and Islam is my deen. From an aqeedah perspective, it means this is what you uphold as the doctrine or as your creed. And then there is the application of that when you are tested, when somebody is in trouble, then what is it that they do? And that's when the realities of the heart come out. So he said, yes, you have said that you believe, but now you must raise your level of belief. You must come to the level of tawakkul, of trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if in fact you are Muslims. They said, okay, we will place our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Musa alayhi salam works on his people for years and years and years. And during this time, he is also making dua. رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ آتَيْتَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَأَهُ زِينَةً وَأَمْوَالًا فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Oh Allah, you have given Fir'aun and his elite council, the people that are holding the offices in his government. Oh Allah, you've given them everything. They have a beautiful life. They have tremendous amounts of wealth. رَبَّنَا لِيُضِلُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِكَ. Oh Allah, all of this is being channeled to taking people away from you, becoming a hindrance between mankind and you. So he said, رَبَّنَا اطْمِسْ عَلَىٰ أَمْوَالِهِمْ وَاشْدُدْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ فَلَا يُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى يَرَوُا الْعَذَابَ الْأَلِيمِ. Oh Allah, render their wealth useless. Make them in such a state that even with all of their wealth, they can't do anything with it. And now that years and years and decades have passed, and there is no chance of them coming to deen, no chance of them coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that they're not going to believe now. He said, okay then, oh Allah, you seal their hearts. You deprive them of iman, make the decision, and You do what you have to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala announced to Musa alayhi salam and his brother Harun. Harun alayhi salam was making the same du'as. قَدْ أُجِيبُ الدَّعْوَتُكُمَا. Your dua has been accepted. Yani, it's already accepted. But it doesn't mean that you are going to see the effects of it right away. So now, there are two things that you have to do. From this time until whatever you're asking for is granted, the first thing is istiqama fastaqima. You need to remain steadfast in your work, in your mission, and in implementing the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second thing is, you have been tested with people who are constantly trying to sway you from one side to the other side, trying to get you to do this, trying to get you to change this, to modify that. وَلَا تَتَّبِعَنِّ سَبِيلَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Don't follow the path of people who have no knowledge. Mufassirin write that from the time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala announced this, that O Musa and Harun, your du'as are accepted, till the time that Fir'aun was actually drowned, 40 years passed. 40 years. That is a long time. So, what is this telling us? It's telling us that the test of the Muslims is not necessarily the hardship that they are going through at the hands of someone else. That's not necessarily their only test. In fact, sometimes there's a difference between the symptoms and the causes. And the wise physician can distinguish between the symptom of something and the disease itself, the causes. If someone has a constant headache, there are medications that you can take for headaches. But if this is an ongoing problem, it's becoming a chronic condition, and that's all you're doing, or that's all that's being prescribed, it means the person is not looking beyond this immediate symptom. They're not asking what you have. It could be that, la samahallah, there is a brain tumor. And if the person says, no, it's a headache, oh, we have this great medicine for headaches. Oh, that one's not working, let me give you a stronger one. Oh, here's a stronger one. I remember we had this physician in the UK where I studied. I won't take his name, but we called his clinic the takeout. Because you could go there, he would be sitting there, it did not look like a doctor's office. In fact, when you went in, he would be sitting behind this desk with the computer in front of him, and his way of welcoming would be, what can I get you? And whatever medicine we asked for, he would give it to, oh, that, no problem. I remember once I was going through some serious pain, and the medicine that I had been prescribed was not strong enough. So I said, look, this is what I'm taking, it's not working, give me something stronger. He said, done. And that's it. He printed it out, gave it to me, I went and got the medicine, took the medicine. It knocked me out, I fainted while I was in class. It was a very strong hit. He didn't care what was causing the pain. So sometimes the trouble, the immediate trouble that we are facing is a symptom of something deeper, of something that caused it. And we have to go to the cause. In this case, Fir'aun was not the cause of the problems. Fir'aun was a symptom. He was an outcome of problems that had been occurring. He was an outcome of generations of being away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Generations of ghafla, generations of disobedience. That's what it took to take these people who were at one time the kings of Egypt and made them the slaves of Egypt. So the immediate affliction is not necessarily the only thing that should be on our minds. The immediate is a symptom many times, and the cause is our a'mal. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not make good conditions bad until the a'mal turn from good to bad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not change bad conditions to good until the a'mal change from bad to good. This was actually the work of the Prophets ﷺ. This is what they were there to achieve. The biggest achievement of the Prophets ﷺ was that they created a shift in society where people all of a sudden came back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People came back to Him. People started obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what we see as the outcomes, oh, such and such enemy was destroyed, such and such people were destroyed, such and such people were saved. These are also just symptoms. The symptom of reform is the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah's help will come. وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نَصْرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah said, it's my right, it's due upon me. Wherever there are believers that are doing what they're supposed to do, my help will always be there. So, 40 years later, why? Because after these du'as, there was still much more effort that needed to be made. So the test is of istiqamah, fastaqima. Even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises to change our conditions, will we remain steadfast in deen? Or is this a temporary thing? Like we read in Surah Yunus today, that when the human being is afflicted with some kind of a pain, he is remembering Allah all the 24 hours, around the clock. لِجَنْبِهِ أَوْ قَاعِدًا أَوْ قَائِمًا. He's lying down, he's thinking, oh Allah. When he's sitting, oh Allah. He's standing, oh Allah. At work, oh Allah. But he is completely immersed in his remembrance of Allah. Actually, it's not remembrance of Allah, it's remembrance of his problem. That problem has overwhelmed him, and he can't get it off of his mind. So whenever he thinks of the problem, he says, who do I go to? Okay, he goes to Allah. This is also a good thing. He's going to Allah, he's not going to someone else. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see that, is this a temporary thing? Is this a temporary arrangement? That you're just going to ask your needs from me, and you're going to be really good, well behaved, and then when my help comes, you're going to go back? فَلَمَّا كَشَفْنَا عَنْهُ ضُرَّهُ مَرَّ كَأَن لَّمْ يَدْعُنَا إِلَىٰ ضُرٍّ مَسَّهُ. Allah says, when I remove his affliction, then he goes on with his life as if he had never been that desperate, as if he was never crying in front of me, as if he was never making dua 24 hours. So the symptoms and the causes need to be differentiated. And the cure of a problem, the treatment of a problem, is always from the cause, the root of it. So yes, we have to ask. It is the ways of the Prophets ﷺ that they used to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His help. Oh Allah, help us against such and such tyrant. Oh Allah, help us in such and such condition. Oh Allah, remove such and such difficulty. This dua is good, it's important. But that's not what the whole scenario is about. There is another effort that must also be going on, the effort of self-correction, the effort of reform. It needs to be simultaneous. And then we will solve the problem from the root. So these are some of the things that we can think about in regards to this surah. This month is that month where we bring those changes. This month is the month. And it should not be that, well, I'm pretty comfortable right now, so I don't need to change. No. This should not be our deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if I'm happy, if my financial situation, my physical health, my family situation is good, then that means I must be doing everything right. I don't need to improve. No. This is a big deception. سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ وَأُمْلِي لَهُمْ إِنَّ كَيْدِي مَتِينٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives people respite. He gives them a chance. Just because there is no immediate affliction, it doesn't mean that we're doing everything right. It could be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just giving us some time to see how long does He go and do this. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us that in these blessed hours and minutes, we earnestly turn towards Him, and we appeal to His mercy, we appeal to His forgiveness, and we appeal to His power to give us hidayat and enable us to walk on that path that He wants us to walk on. The path of the Nabiyyin, of the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada, the Salihin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps us walking on that path until we leave this world walking on that same path. So these are, respected brothers and elders, dear sisters, these are the nights to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this. The du'as of these precious moments are accepted. Make dua while you're fasting. Make dua at the time of iftar. Make dua in the middle of the night before your suhoor. Use every occasion. Don't let any occasion slip, because the occasions of acceptance are plenty. There are plenty. Du'as are being accepted. People are being forgiven. Their necks are being freed from Jahannam. Left, right and center. It's happening all day, all night. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those people that avail from these opportunities. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi.